Hello, I'm Nigel Sarbatts, founder of the PR Cavalry and co-founder with Rod Cartwright of the Independent Impact 50 Awards. And I'm delighted to be joined now by Emma Duke, one of the winners of our inaugural awards this year, to ask her a little bit about her freelance independent career and to ask her the same five questions that we're asking all the winners who are taking part in these short video clips. Um, so we'll go straight into it by saying, Emma, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to go independent and describe the kind of work that you do at the moment.
Thank you so much, Nigel. So it was about nearly 4 years, well, probably a bit longer ago now, and I was getting towards the end of a head of communications role, which I had got an awful lot from, but I was starting to get a bit frustrated. I was running with a colleague of mine, a network called Public Relations Oxford at the time, and that was going really well. I'd started doing a bit of writing for some PR publications like Influence, and I was starting to think about setting up my own business. I went for a nice walk with a good friend of mine, and she noticed that I was starting to kind of give myself some deadlines and some to think about how that might look. And she suggested that it was as my 40th birthday was coming up, that maybe I set myself an even like a closer deadline. And so I did. And pretty much on my 40th birthday, I gave in my notice and gave myself a couple of months ready to launch my business at that point. Um, and yes, the rest is history, shall we say.
Okay. And what sort of work do you do for your clients?
So I'm a communications consultant. I'm also a coach and a trainer. So I do a lot of thought leadership work and crisis communications, predominantly in the education sector. Um, Together with that, I do a lot of training for people like the PRCA and for other organizations such as Moxie Communications. And then more recently, I trained as a coach as well. So I get a lot from that. That sometimes merges into the training or the communications, but it's a nice mix for me.
Okay. Thank you. So, first of the five questions that we're asking everybody, um, what did it mean to you to be included in the inaugural Independent Impact 50 and why?
It felt really powerful for me, predominantly to do with the impact element of it. The recognition is always lovely, but actually I've always really focused on impact. Whether that be making sure that I'm delivering real impact for my clients. I've actively turned down clients and kind of ended relationships on the basis where I don't feel like actually I'm delivering enough of an impact with the work that I'm doing or that they need from me. But and particularly in a sector such as education, I want to make sure that we are delivering kind of positive change and better outcomes. But then also in terms of some of the other work that I do outside of my traditional kind of communications work. So I'm a chair of a charity called Connection Support. It does feel it's always been within my bones to make positive change in communities that I live in. And so that was part of my submission for the award, and that was what I was given that recognition for, which means a lot to me.
Okay. And second question, what behaviors by clients have most surprised you since going independent, be they positive or not so positive?
So I actually thought about the things that didn't surprise me and shouldn't surprise any of us, in that actually clients are human like the rest of us.
Mhm.
And so they are equally allergic to awkward situations and feeling bad about things. And I think that's a lot of the situations where client relationships don't go so well, is that either one of us ends up by kind of shying away from that difficult conversation. I like to think that the relationships I build with clients are trusting enough that we can both be honest with each other. So I haven't had too many difficult situations. But in terms of really surprising ones, I actually had a situation where I felt like we'd worked really well together over a good period of time, and yet there wasn't a lot of energy from this client, and it was a kind of a couple of people within the organization. So I left that one, and it's very rare, but I left that relationship thinking, oh no, I don't think I really added enough to that one. Anyway, I'd promised to arrange a kind of a call 3 months later. And it turns out that actually I did make an impact, which was a nice thing to hear. They were really effusive and they gave me loads of recommendations, but it genuinely surprised me because they hadn't been that effusive before.
Okay. All right. Okay, so imagine that you're having lunch with the CEOs of the CIPR and the PRCA. What's the one thing you want them to understand about practicing as an independent and about the role and importance of the independent sector overall?
So I think, I mean, knowing both of them, I think they do know this. However, I think sometimes it's hard for both organizations to put this into practice.
Hmm,
It's the recognition of the amount of experience that is within our sector. It's not as visible because we don't have the big brand names after our job titles, but actually it's a mistake to kind of to not recognize that actually like all our collective experience of working with much more organizations is huge.
hmm,
And you see that occasionally with, I mean, I would say less so with PRCA and CIPR, but some of the big brand conferences where you just don't get a look in unless you've got a big brand name next to your
hmm,
job title, which I find really frustrating because actually I think the value of experience is much more collective than that.
hmm,
I would say to both of them to be aware of the fact that it's not always that actually like there's an awful lot more hidden in the independent sector than immediately kind of is obvious to them. It's
hmm,
not always the people who are at the conferences. In fact, one of the things I would definitely say to them is could you please make your conference fees a bit more affordable for independent practitioners because they are ex very expensive. Um, but actually, like the people who go to those conferences are usually the people who have childcare, who have a bit more flexibility with their work, various other things. And actually, in the independent sector, there's a huge amount of us who've ended up working as freelancers because we need to juggle various caring responsibilities or
hmm,
travel.
hmm,
And so, while I can appreciate that they don't have a lot of time to bury under every single little crevice, I think that's one of the powers of this kind of grouping, the kind of the 150, is that actually it's really bringing out the value and the kind of the gems that are in all of our rock pools of knowledge. And so I think making the most of that in the training that they deliver, knowing that actually there are people out there who've worked for multiple organizations and have now more flexibility in order to be able to put that into practice and train new practitioners.
Okay, thank you. Question four. So you meet Emma as you weigh up whether you should go it alone, the Emma of 2021. What do you say to her?
So I've got a serious answer and then slightly embarrassing one. Um, I'll go with the embarrassing one first.
Okay.
Um, so my mum very kindly, because she was slightly terrified about me doing this, gave me some money and to set aside in case I got a big scary tax bill. And the one thing I would say to myself is probably save that for when the tax bill does come, because I did not. She'll kill me now if she sees this, but definitely look after that because the tax bill comes and it's always a shock. Um, and it's always inevitably in a year where you're not making as much money that year, but last year you made more. Um, the the other one which I think has set me in massive stead is recognizing, because I was terrified at the time. I remember talking to friends about it, say I feel like I'm about to jump off a cliff and this feels very scary. But knowing that actually my relationships are what will help me fly.
Mm.
And the fact that I am quite human and open and authentic, and I build really positive relationships and friendships within the kind of sector.
Mm.
And that's what has really made sure that I can flourish. And it's what gives me joy every day as well.
Okay, lovely answer. And then final question. What words would you use to sum up how you feel about your business in the next 12 months?
So I wrote down anxious optimism. Because if I'm entirely honest, last year was quite tricky.
Mm.
Things slowed down an awful lot in the education sector.
Yeah.
However, I've diversified a fair amount.
Mm.
I've built new relationships, and I'm getting a lot more incoming inquiries,
Right.
which is a lovely sign. So I'm actually feeling quite positive.
Okay. That's great. Well, thank you for your answers. It's been a pleasure, as always, talking to you. I hope that you will consider entering next year's awards, and even more so, I hope that you will consider recommending the awards to people that you think ought to enter. I think that's an important thing. Um, and the final thing to say is again, thank you for your comments. Thanks for joining us, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Take care, Emma. Bye bye.